Welcome back, everybody. This is Rodrigo Fauner with another episode of Asheville Real Estate News. Today, we're really excited to talk about real estate with an agent, and we're going to be talking about property management, but we're also really going to be focusing just about that process of buying things when it's numbers-based and really looking at things from an investment property, but through the lens of a property manager and an agent. So really excited to dive into this conversation. As you know, we've had lots of investors on the show and we've had some agents on the show. We've never really had a focus on buying properties with an agent that are investment grade. So excited to get into that a little bit today. As a quick reminder to everybody, if you're tuning in, this episode, like all of our episodes here, are brought to you by American IRA LLC. If you're looking for a place to have a self-directed IRA account, highly encourage you guys to reach out to them. They do good work, and they're also local here to Asheville. But without further ado, I'm really excited to bring Al from Alpha on the show.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Just want to say thank you for being here on your birthday weekend. This is going to be released a couple weeks from now, but for you guys listening, if you remember that Friday where you had 20 flood warnings go off on your cell phone, this is the day that we're recording this, so it's been a little chaotic, but excited to be here, and thanks for taking the time once again.
Man, I'm excited to be here too.
Yeah. Why don't you just introduce everybody, give them an idea of how you got to Asheville and then how you got into real estate and what you're doing now, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, man, what a long, strange trip it's been. We moved to Asheville just because it was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
We used to vacation up here. We got the opportunity. We came. A little life change, some difference from Florida. And I fell into property management.
Mm-hmm.
I was working on a farm. I was hustling with my buddy in the landscaping business, and I got married. And once I got married, it was time to make money.
Mm-hmm.
So the landscaper had a bunch of accounts for a property management company. The property manager quit. Long story short, I subbed for a couple days and then figured out that I could do it and that I was good at it. So I worked there for a year or two, got my real estate license, became the property manager, and now I run a lot of the business. We also got a full remodeling crew, bunch of investors, work with a lot of great people, and do a lot of, I guess, what you would call house flipping. But I'm just flipping other people's houses.
Right. So managing the projects and keeping everybody happy.
Yeah, and so here we are in Asheville in a great economy, a great time to be able to profit on houses here.
Yeah, absolutely. So how long ago was it that you got into the property management? When was it that, I guess, when did you get married? It sounds like those are synonymous.
God, now you're putting me on the spot,
man.
I've been in Asheville about 9 years.
Okay.
I've been in property management, I want to say 6 or 7.
Okay. 2012-ish?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Everything seems like yesterday to me. So.
Well, I know sometimes it can happen with real estate, but specifically property management. Like, you get time doesn't have the same structure, right?
It's like dog years.
You're always on the you're always on the clock, right? Especially with the seasons and the winter, you've got issues with pipes and then water. Like right now, trees falling. It just seems like there's always something,
right?
Yeah,
there's a ton of flooded basements, a bunch of tenants shop vacuuming stuff out. No one's real happy about it, and there's no real solution in the moment. The stress level can be high a lot of the times. You don't get to turn off. But the return is good. As a real estate agent, you get a steady paycheck.
Yeah.
You have the opportunity to make a ton of money, and you have access to tons of first-time home buyers, tons of investors. It's really where you want to be if you want to successfully and consistently profit. A lot of my friends who are agents only, they're always hustling for the next deal.
Right.
It's peaks and valleys, and valleys. So it's kind of nice to have some stability to that.
Yeah, I'd never really thought about that component, the peaks and valleys from an agent standpoint, which, if you're buying and flipping houses, which a lot of investors do, which is like if you're a buyer's agent or a listings agent, it's very similar, right? As soon as you have a closing, you got to go find either the next buyer or the next listing, but which is, interesting. But as a property manager, then you've got that consistent monthly income, which is the same thing as an investor, is why you want to get rental properties. Because when you're not flipping a house, you've still got the rental income coming into, at least make the peaks and valleys less extreme, right?
Absolutely. I mean, in rental property, too, you want to profit from it. If you buy wrong, then your rent's just paying your mortgage. I think there's two types of investors that make money, and there's a type that make money on long-term equity when they sell the home. So they'll put a tenant in place to take care of it and pay the mortgage.
Right.
10 years from now, they've made 20% markup on their money.
Right.
The home has gained value and they sell. And then there's the investor owner that actually bought right, has a $500 mortgage, has leveraged enough debt for him to be comfortable with, but still renting the house for $1,200 a month.
And it's making cash flow, and then any appreciation is just the bonus.
That's it. That's the dream. Unfortunately, I would guess that most of the single family homes that I manage for people, they're probably only making 100 or two over their mortgage. If you think about
And that's
how
gross,
much,
I'm guessing, right?
Well, if you think about how much what your mortgage payment after taxes and insurance is to have a decent, livable home in a halfway decent area in Asheville, I mean, if you're looking at $250,000 to $280,000 home on the low end, your mortgage payment's going to be $1,200 a month if you get a normal mortgage.
Yeah, and that house isn't being rented for $2,200 a month.
That's it. That's it.
No, it's tough, right? Like, to make rentals really work here in Asheville, it's not the easiest thing in the world, right?
It's hard.
And it's a little challenging because obviously there's a housing crisis here, which I have a couple of questions for you on that in a minute.
Right. Yeah.
But it's a numbers game. Like, it's not reasonable to expect somebody to rent something out where they're losing money every month.
No,
so
no one's doing this for free.
No, and so it's just like that. It's a little bit of a catch-22 as far as how you're going to get around that.
Yeah.
Question for you though, before we even get into that, just from a property management, it's interesting. So like, when you're working with your investors, you've also got tenants, right? Like, how does that go as far as being kind of stuck between two different groups of people who you have to still serve both equally well, but have different needs?
Well, so as a real estate agent, you have a client and a customer. And a client, you have a fiduciary obligation.
Is that the investor?
That's the investor. Yeah. So if I'm attached to the investor, I am his agent. I am looking out for his best interests at all times. As a customer, the tenant ends up being the customer in the situation. And I still owe them honesty and fairness and to have a good relationship with them. But I don't work for them. So when it comes down to it, I always have to keep my client's interests in mind. And sometimes they don't line up. And that's kind of why if you talk to regular real estate agents, we're kind of like the redheaded stepchild of the real estate, because we take a lot of stress. People are like, no way would I want to do that job. People are always yelling. They're not. But you get into those situations where you can't. Everybody's unhappy. The tenant's unhappy. The owner doesn't want to fix something, and you are stuck in the middle. Right. So you got to walk that tightrope a few times. But
as you've been walking that tightrope, is there anything that stood out to you as far as how to do that well? Like, if anybody's thinking about, like, man, Al made a good point. Like, I don't want to have those peaks and valleys. I want to have that consistency. What is a learning point that you wish you knew 7 years ago when you got started?
They always call it long-term wealth with income properties. I think as an agent, the thing for me was my money was sitting in the bank. It wasn't doing anything for me. I had security that I had this big savings account or relatively big savings account. I mean, to me, it was more than I've had in a long time. And IRAs and investment accounts were making 2.5%. It didn't seem like it was worth it. So I finally figured I'd do what everyone else is doing, to start putting my money where my mouth is. The properties around here are not going to lose value. If you get the opportunity to grab one, grab it. Just work backwards. If you want to make money at it, you have to work backwards. What's your end result? What are you trying to get? And then go backwards from that, and you'll find the funds that you're going to need to put down. And then you can go find the house.
No, I think working it backwards, super good advice. That's what I've always been told since the beginning when I got into it. It's like, start at where you want to be 5-10 years from now, map it out, and then just start at that first step that you get to.
You can't get from A to B if you don't know where B is. I mean, it's common sense, but unfortunately, sometimes people don't get that far. I talk to a lot of folks who want to buy a rental house, and they're out looking for a rental house. They don't know what they're going to do with it. They don't understand that your mortgage payment does not justify rent. And they don't understand how long they're going to have to hold it to make money. Right.
Well, that kind of moves me to my next point is, you're seeing real estate from a very numeric standpoint, right? Like, it rents for X, so therefore I can afford to pay Y for the property. And how do you work with somebody of being like, hey, I want to get into the rental business, and they're like, oh, that house is so pretty. I want to buy it because of where it's located, and I like the way the porch sits or whatever. And they get excited from emotional reasons versus being like, hey, if you just like turn down the block and go half a mile, a house might not look pretty, but the numbers look much better. What's that like education process that you take somebody through?
I think that it's probably just what any realtor does to maybe a first-time home buyer. Is the same thing that I do when I work with first-time home buyers and first-time investors. And I don't work with a lot of first-time investors because you have to learn. If you've never done it before, you do make emotional decisions instead of money decisions. Some of the larger investors that I work for, they own 60 condos, multiple houses. They're building, they're remodeling, they've got long-term rentals, and they'll walk away from an incredible deal. We've been out on walkthroughs for homes before they hit the market, pre-foreclosure, need work, in an area where they're selling for $360 to $380, and they want $160 for it, and it looks like you're going to put $100,000 into it, and it's just not worth it. And they walk away, and even in my mind, I'm like, man, that's still a massive profit margin. But to them, there's easier ways with $100,000 to make money. So you really have to take your time and wait. Be patient.
No, absolutely. I think not all money is created equal in that sense, right? Just because you can profit a big check on a deal doesn't mean it's the best deal. If it's going to take you a year to get that same amount, but you can make, say that was like what, 6-figure spread that you mentioned roughly, right, on that. And so it might take them a year to get there, but if they feel like they have that same opportunity, if they're patient, they can make 6 figures in 4 months. Like, it makes sense why you're passing that up, I guess, but that's only experience. I don't know how else you would get that.
It's all profit. I mean, if you're going to work your butt off and put $50,000 or $60,000 of your actual money on the line, along with leveraging $150,000 in a loan, do everything that you need to do to make $10,000. I mean,
it's hard to get excited about that, I suppose.
I mean, you could probably cut grass on the side on nights and weekends in your neighborhood and make an extra $10,000 in a year. And if it's going to take you 2 months to get the project started, 6 months to finish the project, and 3 months to sell it, you've effectively made $10,000 in a year.
No, that's exactly right.
You want to buy yourself. You want to be able to feel secure in your investment and make money, not buy yourself a job.
Where do you feel that the market is right now in Asheville in regards to rentals? I know you referenced a couple of times it's strong. Is it?
It's good.
Has it been good? Like I mean, we had a property, and I don't know what it is, but it's right by UNCA, and it took us like 2 months to rent. I think it was like 2 months. It was about 2 months. I mean, it's not like a super special nice property. It's a little older house, but everything's clean. It works. It's heated. And it just took us forever. We actually had to bring it down from what the rent was before. How often do you see that right now? Or is it just like, dude, we got some bad luck there?
We've got some properties that are more challenging to rent, and I couldn't tell you why. We've, from everything from a condo in the middle of downtown Asheville, a 1-bedroom with all the utilities included for $1,200 a month.
Wow.
And I mean, just having your own parking space in downtown Asheville is worth that. And it sits.
Wow.
And so we have these, it's all the time. It's these same houses that are just hard, and there's nothing wrong with the house. They're not overpriced. It's all market and timing. If you're over by UNCA, college gets out in July. You should have your house vacant at the middle of June, your renovation's done, and it up for lease in July, and you should be okay renting to college kids. You won't have any vacancy. If your lease runs over into the winter, you're going to experience
that's part of it. We had somebody leave, and it was like January, and we're like, no, not January.
And especially in that area, because it's all college. We manage a couple condos in that area, and it's college, man.
Absolutely. So 7 years in, what do the next 7 years look like for you? Are you doing anything different, or are you kind of just rinsing and repeating because you like the formula that you've got going on?
Man, I'm a hustler. I'm always wanting to expand and do better. If I did great in one, I want to do better in the next. I don't think that I'll ever be satisfied sitting still.
Right.
I'm not at that point in my life yet where I can sit back and enjoy what I have. So I want to get bigger, and I want to get better. I want to be able to do this better. I want to be able to provide a better product for the tenants. I want to turn tenants into home buyers. No renter, anyone who's renting a house. I think if you could feasibly put on the table, hey man, would you rather own this house for what you're paying? Most people would say absolutely.
Yeah.
There might be a couple people that they're worried about where they're going to go in life in the next year or two, or moving or college, but I think that we can provide a better product for the tenants. We're going to be better off too. I mean, the investors will always be there, the rental property in Asheville will always be there, and tenants will always be there.
You kind of touched on one of my favorite conversation points.
Sure.
So obviously I'm in real estate. We're in real estate. I'm a huge believer in renting, actually.
Yeah.
And I don't know, personally, belief in home ownership is very low as far as whether it's a good idea or not. I'm always like, no, do not buy for yourself. Rent, take, whatever. So do you get pushback, I guess, is my question. What is the consensus for people? Do most people, I mean, it sounds like when you have this conversation, most people are like, if given the chance to own, they pull the trigger? Or is like, am I just alone in this? I'm like, you should rent, do not buy, take that same amount of money, go buy a rental property, rent where you live, buy a house, rent it out to somebody else.
Well, you're thinking of it from an investor's state of mind. This is what you do for a living. So leveraging debt is normal to you. Most people don't want to be in debt.
Right.
Most people think debt is a bad thing, and it can be. But as an investor, debt is what you live in. You don't make money on your own money. Make money on someone else's money. Let them carry the risk. So with the housing crisis in Asheville,
which is where I was kind of hoping you'd take this.
Yeah, we're going
good.
to.
Yeah.
First of all, I'd say I don't think that we have. I don't want to say that we don't have a housing crisis, but I think we have more of a job crisis.
That's a good.
If you go to any other bigger city or city that's blossoming and expanding and being ranked nationally as the place to be, anyone 2 steps above us or 2 steps below us, they're going to have massive rents. You pay to be in those cities. I realize that there's locals here that have been here their whole life, and they feel that rents are way too high compared to what they were, but the city's changed.
Yeah.
The problem, I think, is that the jobs haven't changed. I think that we're still seeing a lot of hospitality jobs, a lot of front of house, back of house jobs.
Service industry.
Yeah, and there's kind of a cap on how much you can make at that. And some people make very good money at it, but I think the average, it's turning into a roommate town in order to be able to afford it. So if we can change the jobs, if we can bring more industry here and more professional grade jobs, I think that it'll equal out. I mean, as far as the housing crisis, I have 1 vacant rental right now.
We very rarely have issues filling things. I think even houses where they're far out or they're a little quirky move really quickly. And I mean, I think our average vacancy, I'm going to just refer to Nolan because he manages ours. They're like, 30 days or less probably, right? Yeah, so we move really quickly through them. I've always thought that transportation, when I've thought about it, I grew up in a big city, Bogota, Colombia. And it was like, transportation, I think, would solve a lot of issues, right? Like if there's good public transportation you could rely on that ran on a consistent schedule and it wasn't crazy, and you could get here from Canton, Candler, Weaverville, other areas, like I think that would make the housing situation a lot better, right? Because you're not going to feel like you have to live biking distance from where you work or something like that.
I think Asheville is growing faster than we can keep up.
Yeah, it's tough.
We're now seeing all these highway projects and all this affordable housing infrastructure being put into place, but it takes time. These things don't happen overnight, and Asheville has not blown up overnight, but is blown up quick.
Yeah, it's
it was even 10 years ago when we moved here, it's changed.
Right.
And I think the object for the investors is to see where it's going and be there first. If you're not going to be in investment housing, if you're just a regular tenant, should you buy a house? Yeah, man, because the house is going to be worth more. It's almost impossible to lose money unless you have a horrible real estate agent. Get a decent deal on a house, put a little elbow grease into it, and 10 years from now, you'll make some money.
Yeah, I would say that's typically true.
I think so.
Yeah, I don't know. If I wait until that's like going to the weeds for me. I have a little bit of a soapbox issue. I like to jump on there and be like, no, but I'm like, my thing is like, if you bought an 04 or something, you didn't have necessarily more money in like 2010, right? Like it's not necessarily a guarantee. And I think,
well, you're not going to retire on it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. Like it's so I always have a little bit of a mixed emotion. So my grandma and my grandpa, they did though, right? They owned for 30 years and then like had a huge windfall when they had one of those stories where you hear people in California, they bought a house for $30,000 in the 70s and then it sells for like 1.2 million, right?
Like the people who bought in Montford back in the
right.
day.
No,
Yeah.
and so like that's awesome. I don't know. Cautious. I don't know. Maybe I've moved around a lot too, and I'm like, I just don't think I'd live in the same house for 30 years either. So, going back to the real estate and the investing, what's been your favorite thing that you've worked on, that or lesson that you've learned, managing properties and like, that's just a lot of interesting relationships. I'm sure the conversations have been there as well.
All of it's great, man.
Yeah.
I love what I do. I honestly do. It can be overwhelmingly stressful. I can have to take a nap at 2:00 some days and not want to get out of bed on some days, but when I'm on, I can juggle everything, and it's really a juggling act. We normally have 3 or 4 houses being remodeled, normally under contract with a couple, and then all the normal management and day-to-day stuff, and then looking at houses for investors, working cash flow projections and net operating income for other people, trying to figure out where their next purchase is going to be. And then remodeling the old ones once the tenants are done with it, once the investor's done with it and wants to put it on the market, we'll help them with all that. So between the contractors and the clients and the buying and the tenants and the marketing, it's awesome when you get it right. You're just in the flow.
Yeah.
So what's my favorite part about it? I don't know.
When you get it right?
When I get it right,
Yeah.
because the other part is there's so many moving pieces that when you get one wrong, it can take a day to just kind of pick up everything and get back on track.
Yeah.
Or 2.
For sure. If somebody's, a landlord right now, they maybe have 1 house, 2 houses, and they're trying to scale or grow, what's your suggestion on when do you make that decision from being like, hey, I'm going to manage my own properties versus it's time to go look for a management company to manage my properties?
Man, there's lots of reasons to hire a property manager. I could certainly pitch property management to you.
Yeah.
I think one of the main ones is an investor at the gym the other day that I was speaking with. She was gonna, I forget exactly what we were talking about. I think it was a remodel in her basement. But she's talking about turning them over. She's just ready. I mean, property management, you're hands off. We don't want you to manage your own home. We're going to do it for you. We've got a set way of doing it, and we know it works.
Yeah.
If you manage your own home, you're typically susceptible to heartstrings, to sob stories, to my car broke down, my sister's sick, my wife lost her job, I lost my job. My pay doesn't come in till the 7th. I know you want it by the 5th. Can we work something out? And though as humans, I think we all feel that if we're in the ability to help somebody, we should. And as a property manager, we empathize, but we work for you. And we know what that road leads down to. And what the lady said, she's got 5 houses or 4 houses. And I asked if she does background checks. And she answered immediately, yes. And then she was like, well, some of the time. And to me, background checks, verification, it's like birth control. If you're not ready to have a kid, you should use it all the time.
Yeah.
You should do background checks every single time. You should call the last landlord. You should do an evictions check. And if you don't, be prepared to suffer the consequences. Because 90%, now 80% of the homes we get are from owners who had that bad tenant and they don't know what to do. The home's trashed. They can't evict them. They feel bad. They come to me with these incredible, I don't call them sob stories, but they are. And I feel bad. It's a horrible situation. So if you're to make that transition, it allows you hands off.
Yeah.
We've got owners in Germany. We got people traveling the world doing their retirement thing. We just
awesome.
put money in your account every month. If something bad happens, I'll call you. And if the worst case scenario happens, I'll represent you and we'll get through it together and we'll get your home making money again.
Cool. So no news is good news, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
From the owner, not
From the owner.
tenant.
Yeah.
Not from the tenant.
You don't want the tenant going quiet. Hey, so want to do like a quick fire round as we wrap things up. Just fire off quick questions. Just give me your thoughts and we'll move through these. I've got a couple. We'll see if I get inspired as we go along.
All right.
Security deposits?
Yeah.
Always?
Always.
Okay.
100%. North Carolina allows up to 2 times the rent. For a standard good tenant, 1.5 times should be your basis.
What do you think about the statement, there's no such thing as a bad tenant, there's just a lazy landlord?
No, I'd counter with the only thing worse than no tenant is a bad tenant.
That's true.
Yeah.
I like that. Do you like 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms?
It depends what your end goal is, man. 2 bedrooms are great. 2 bedrooms are perfect. If you're going to have 3 bedrooms and you want to see the best and highest on rental rates, you got to have 2 bathrooms with it.
Mobile homes,
Don't
important piece of the puzzle, or no?
We don't do them.
What about from a housing standpoint?
I mean, it's affordable.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, most of the mobiles that I live out in Leicester, so the mobiles that I see have probably been there since, I don't know,
70s,
since
80s?
they shouldn't. Yeah, like they're falling over. If you need, I live in a manufactured home, which is a glorified double wide. I mean, they came in 2 pieces and they put it on my property. It's a beautiful home. I love it. So it's affordable. It's something you can keep up. As rental property, though, they get torn up. And you just keep dumping money into it, and they're never going to gain value.
Is being a landlord for everybody?
No, that's why my job exists, man.
Should everybody own rental property?
If you can.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a wise investment.
And finish up with predictions for the real estate market in general for over the next 12 months.
Gosh, over the next 12 months, I think we're fine, man. Interest rates seem okay. Everything seems pretty stable. We're starting to ramp up for the summer. We're seeing a lot more houses, at this time of year versus a month and a half ago being put on market, a lot more closings on the hot sheet. Everything's going to be fine.
Awesome. Hey, I really enjoyed the conversation, by the way. I know you got a ton more you could have shared.
Sure.
But kind of run out of time a little bit. So if somebody wants to get in contact with you and talk to you about property management and, making that transition to not managing their own properties and working with a pro, what's the best way for somebody to reach out to you and connect with you about that?
My personal site is 828homesales.com. That'll get you through to me. You can click through that to Alpha Real Estate to see all the property management stuff. Or you can just call me right through my site, man. Real easy, 828homesales.com.
Okay, awesome. And we'll include that in the show notes as well.
Cool.
And last closing tip.
Sure.
If you're going to impart one thing on somebody who just bought their first rental property, what would it be?
Hire a property manager.
That's not hiring a property manager. If they've listened to everything, they just want to do it themselves anyways then.
Yeah,
and they're like, I want to do it for the experience.
So I think the best tip I can give you isn't really a financial one. It's put your money into things that don't break. Don't decorate for yourself. Decorate for the tenant. Laminate floors have 50-year warranties. Pets can pee on them and they're still okay. Carpet has a 7-year HUD lifespan. You're putting a house out there that's going to take exceptional wear and tear. Make sure it's ready for it.
Man, that is gold. I wish I would have been way more aware of that when we first got started. So, Al, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely.
Hope you have a great birthday weekend, man.
Thanks.
And thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week. So, quick reminder, always we appreciate any reviews that you guys leave us on iTunes or wherever you listen to this. See you guys next week. Take care.
Thanks.